Vincent is so done with art and all that, but his mom and uncle just won't stop going on about the amazing colors and composition of great masters like his namesake. Then his little sister disappears into a famous painting. What is a lad to do? Join us for this fantastic journey beneath the swirling sky with homeschool mom and middle grade author Carolyn Leiloglou. Welcome back to Fantastical Truth, the often artsy podcast from Lorehaven.com, in which we explore fantastic stories and sometimes classic paintings for God's glory. I'm Stephen Burnett, the publisher of Lorehaven and co-author of The Pop Culture Parent.
And I'm Zach Van Gogh, and this is episode 181. What if you fell into classic paintings? And we're going to be talking about the book Beneath the Swirling Sky with author Carolyn Leiloglou.
Zach, it seems to me that Van Gogh is like the most repeatable, most zany, most cartoon-friendly name of the classic artists. So it's no wonder that kids might want to jump into his paintings and solve a mystery and prevent some kind of deconstructionist villain from turning that which is supposed to be beautiful into something ugly. I was intrigued by the premise of this book and now this series when we first caught wind of it. So I'm looking forward to chatting with Carolyn in just a moment. We're going to wheel a framed painting in here because I think we understand that you can only jump into a painting that has been framed. Those are the rules. And the rules for podcasts also dictate that you get some awesome relevant sponsors in here. And our top sponsor is Oasis Family Media with another novel, a fantasy novel that just released a week or so ago, The Looking Glass Illusion by Sarah Ella. Step through the looking glass, slay the Jabberwock, seek the king. Alice is not prepared to face what awaits beyond the Tulgey Wood. When she and the rest of Team Heart enter the fourth and final Wonderland trial, it's up to her to lead them to victory. But this trial is more than a game. If Alice and the others fail to defeat the Jabberwock and reveal the truth about Wonderland, more than points and fame will be lost. Enclave Escape presents The Looking Glass Illusion, Book 2 in the Curious Realities series by Sarah Ella. Available today wherever fantastic books are sold. Pre-order now online or ask for it at your favorite bookseller or your local library. It's also available in audio from Oasis Audio. From there, I think we need to look at that painting. Something is happening. Someone is coming through. It's a framed painting, so it might be a restorationist jumping into the studio. Carolyn Leiloglou now enters. Carolyn Leiloglou is the author of the middle grade fantasy novel Beneath the Swirling Sky and the picture book Library's Most Wanted. Carolyn is the granddaughter of art collectors, daughter of an art teacher, and homeschooling mom to 4 wildly creative kids. She's an award-winning author whose poems and short stories have appeared in children's magazines around the world, including one that I remember, Clubhouse Junior. Carolyn also reviews her favorite children's books on her platform, House Full of Bookworms. Carolyn, thanks for jumping into the studio today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to have you, Carolyn. So I got to ask you right away, which stories in Clubhouse Junior magazine did you write? Because my kids love that magazine and fight over it as soon as it comes in the mail.
I wrote a poem for Clubhouse Junior, and then I wrote a couple of Rebus stories. And that's actually been a while back, several years back. One was like a rodeo-themed one, I think. Yeah.
It's probably the copies then that got lost under the bed a long time ago, Zach. Just like I lost a long time ago when I was a kid, I got the older Clubhouse magazine. It wasn't Junior. My little brother got Junior. I got the regular one for older kids.
For the big kids.
And they had this feature that revealed for the first time what all of the Adventures in Odyssey characters looked like, according to like extremely 1991 artist impressions. And I loved finally seeing these characters for the first time. And then possibly during a move, the magazine was lost. But Carolyn, many works of art have not been lost and they have survived through the test of time. I'm curious which artworks and ideas led you to your origin story of enjoying both biblical truth and fantastic imagination.
Okay, I mean, a lot of them. And I know you usually ask this more in a Narnia way. Like,
well, you are required by Christian law to say that Aslan is your Lord and Savior. Yes,
that's
exactly.
the question I was expecting. So let me start with that, and then I'll go into art. But I discovered the Chronicles of Narnia in 4th grade. I grew up in a Christian family, accepted Jesus really very young, and a Christian school, and discovered Narnia in 4th grade. And that really sparked my love of fantasy, in particular The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And a lot of people have brought up that the kids enter Narnia through a painting in that book.
One of my favorite Narnia portal devices, by the way. I
Yes.
know everyone's real partial to the wardrobe, but I like the painting just as much.
Yeah. And it's funny because I didn't even think about that until after I'd written the book and was telling someone. They're like, oh, yeah, just like The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is true. So, yes, that was definitely my number one growing up. But then for art, I think it's really always been Van Gogh is my favorite. He kind of grew on me. I remember doing a report on him in 5th grade and thinking he was a little strange. But, I really grew to love his art, and I've had the privilege of seeing The Starry Night in person twice, which is just flabbergasting because it's not huge like you think it is. It's quite small. And then how the paint just like stands off the canvas. It's just like has such a presence, even though it's quite small.
Where is it located?
So it is at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, but that's actually not where I saw it either time.
Oh,
I saw it in college, and it was on tour at the LA Museum of Art, I think, LA County Museum of Art. And then I saw it this summer. It was actually at the Met in a special exhibit of Van Gogh cypresses. So that was really special. Part of my love of art came from going to my grandparents' house, and they were art collectors, and they literally had paintings on every single wall. They had like bronze sculptures. They had like knickknacks from their travels around the world. It was just kind of a magical place to visit. And then upstairs, they had a room that was just full of paintings stacked leaning against the wall. And so when that idea for this story first sparked, that was the location. That's kind of where it came from. So it's really kind of set in a version of their house.
I love that.
That is like the best kind of Zillow house, where you see the internet memes that people spread of a most unusual interior decorated house, or maybe some very strange color scheme, like someone has a room totally devoted to Elvis. One presumes that they're going to clear out the Elvis artwork and kitsch before they sell the house, but that's the photo that got through to the website. But I would much prefer then a house that is covered in paintings, good paintings. I take it these were, like, if not, Van Gogh art, because it's kind of expensive and you probably won't find that in someone's house, but any kind of amazing art, even some what people would call kitschy art, or, like people often make fun of particular evangelical types of art, but whole rooms full of them, though. I would think that even bad art, that would be an amazing effect to experience.
It was really amazing, and it was good art. It was mostly American art, a lot of Western art, which was not really my thing, but it was still like very, well done, and kind of just sparks your imagination, and you feel like this. It was just a really cool experience to grow up, kind of going to a museum each time I visited my grandparents' house in a way.
I love that idea of traveling through art into a different world. It obviously we talked about Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but it also makes me think of the 1990s video game Myst, where there's these magical books called linking books, and you open it and it plays a little video, and then it transports you into this other world. And so it's a video game about books, and then they've actually come out with books, just normal written books that are about the world. And I've opened those hoping it would transport me there, but nah, I'm still here in the non-polygon world of the real world. So too bad.
Nice. We used to play that. My husband and I would play that when I was still in college.
Now, in your story, Carolyn, your hero, Vincent, namesake, pretty clear there, does not like art. I'm curious what led to him having this rather contrarian take on things. Now, of course, if you're a kid, and I don't know if Vincent is just really into video games, Myst or otherwise, but maybe art seems really boring. Art is very much a thing of school. It's something that you have to do rather than something you want to do. Like, what are some objections to art that you've seen from kids that you think this book may help to circumnavigate?
Well, okay. So the thing about Vincent is he doesn't like art because he had a bad experience. And so he actually used to love art and used to love painting, and was really into it, and then had a bad experience, as I think a lot of kids in school do. Like if you ask, a classroom full of like kindergartners who's an artist, they're all going to raise their hands, right? And if you ask a classroom full of second graders, maybe 80%. And then by the time you get to like fifth or sixth graders, like maybe one kid's going to raise their hand, even though really we were all designed to create, right? We're made in God's image. And, the first thing we learn about God in Genesis, this is not my original idea, it's from Dorothy Sayers in The Mind of the Maker. She says, we're told we're made in God's image. And the first thing that we're told about God is that he's a creator. So that's got to be part of the way that we're made in God's image, is we all have this desire to create. And it doesn't have to be like drawing or painting or whatever, but I had a very similar experience to Vincent, not in physical drawing or painting, but I had always wanted to be a writer from when I was really little. And then around 5th or 6th grade, I realized, oh, this is hard. Like, I have an idea and I'm writing and then it peters out and I don't know what to do. And just kind of thought, well, I'm not good at this. And so I'm going to quit. And I think that is just a huge thing with kids. Kids either decide they're not good enough and quit. They compare themselves with others. Maybe someone makes fun of them, completely undeservedly, usually, how kids are. And then they just decide, I can't do this, because art, you are expressing yourself, right? You're putting a lot of yourself on the page or the canvas or the keyboard. And it's it can be a very tender thing. And so when kids realize, oh, I can be hurt by this, they want to give up, right? So I'm really hoping maybe my book can inspire some kids to not give up, not put away the paintbrush or the pen, but to keep pursuing it, because it's worth it.
Yeah, that speaks to me, because when I was a kid, I loved to draw and paint and do other kinds of things. But by, I don't know, high school, I guess, I realized I was only really good at drawing things that I could see. I had a much harder time drawing something from my imagination. And so I just kind of eventually gave up on it. I really enjoyed colored pencils or even watercolor of things that I could look at, but just visualizing something and putting that on a canvas, that was extremely difficult for me. And I just stopped doing it and got into other things like photography or videography, because then I'm actually just capturing the things that I see rather than trying to recreate them. So I
Yeah.
definitely resonate with Vincent.
You know what I'd tell my kids when they say that they're not good at something? I say, you get good at what you do, right? If they say, I'm not good at drawing people,
Keep
or
practicing.
yeah, then you need to
Exactly.
draw some more people. If that's something that you want to be good at, you just keep doing it, right? That's what I wish I had known as a 5th grader, like that I should have kept doing it. Then I could have gotten good at it and not had to, wait all this time.
Well, in this case, too, you're leading by example, Carolyn. You've written some other books and, of course, all the other articles we mentioned earlier. But this book is the start of a new series called The Restorationists. So you've kind of got what I would interpret there as a double meaning right there. Of course, people are familiar with someone who restores art professionally and the great painstaking care and professionalism it takes to be able to restore a work of art. I remember probably a few decades ago by now, when they were talking about restoring Da Vinci's The Last Supper, and just the absolute breathtakingly acute work that they had to do in order to restore that. And yet also, I think the Christian is called, I think, in Scripture to be, in a sense, a restorationist of art, and getting back to that original calling of the creation mandate of Genesis 1, to not only be fruitful and multiply and steward the earth, but also to create as we're created to do, because God has created us first. That's something that we still have to do in order to glorify Him. There's this whole issue, though, of being hurt and sin and other issues that get in the way. Who are the restorationists, or can we even speak to who they are in this new story world?
Yeah, so the restorationists are a group of people who have the ability to travel inside paintings, and they actually have the job and duty of protecting them from the bad guys in this world, who are the distortionists. So what the distortionists do is they come in, they not only steal paintings, but they subtly alter them from the inside, so that when people are looking at them, they are instead of having the experience that the artist first intended, they are ending up with negative emotions and thoughts and attitudes that trickle out into the real world, right? Just as art can do to us, right? Like it can give us good feelings or bad feelings, that do trickle out into our lives. So the idea is that the restorationists have to go and also fix these paintings that have been distorted by the distortionists, so that it's not affecting society in a negative way.
I love that. That I just read That Hideous Strength in the last year, and there's that scene. If you're not familiar, where Mark, the protagonist, is brought to this room where he's sort of being indoctrinated into this group, this inner ring, and they show him all these weird paintings, really disturbing things, like a woman with like hair coming out of her mouth, and then just other just odd creatures, and then it's not really detailed exactly, but then there's other paintings that almost look right, but then you start to look at these weird defects, and it's sort of the uncanny valley of it's like almost right, but it's off just enough to make you kind of disgusted. And then the whole point was to make him comfortable in disgust uh, with this sort of anti-beauty that they were forcing. And it wasn't just paintings; it was the architecture in the room, it was the furniture, the colors, and just all kinds of things. And that is very much an ideology that floats around a lot, that objective beauty isn't real, and that you should just get used to this kind of ugliness. But we all have a visceral reaction to that. And I'm thinking now of this story that went viral about 10 years ago of Monkey Christ. So this was a painting of Jesus Christ this was in Spain, in like a little church in the foothills of Sierra de Moncayo. I'm reading the story here. And a parishioner noticed that this painting of Christ was flaking off, and she's like, "Hey, I can help. I can restore that." And well, she didn't really know what she was doing. So I guess that's kind of a skill you have to have as a restorationist. She, bless her heart, tried to make it look good, but Jesus looks like a monkey man. And so I'll try to put this in the show notes, or you could just Google Monkey Christ, and it's become a meme. The original painting was, it's this work that was about 100 years old, and just doesn't look so great now. And so I imagine Vincent has to acquire certain skills. So that must be a journey for him, from trying art to failing at it, and then having to kind of level up his skills to then be able to do this job of protecting the art.
Yeah, so in the book, all the restorationists have what I don't call a skill, but a gift. So because I want to acknowledge that really everything we have is a gift, these things that we're good at. So each of them have different gifts. So like George's gift is navigation, and Uncle Leo's gift is restoration. So Vincent has to find his gift within the restorationist world, and I'm not going to say what that is because that's kind of a big part of the plot. But yeah, finding your gift, and you know, he has a lot of skills already because he was painting and trained by his mom, right? And I don't see it as that he was bad at art before, but I see it as he was listening to the wrong voices about his art, instead of listening to his mom's feedback, who was an art teacher, and he didn't know she was restorationist at the time. He's listening to bullies, right? And taking his self-worth and his deciding what he should do based on that, right? And being hurt. So I think, we have to listen to the right voices, people who love us, about our art and about our gifts that we have. Sometimes someone else is able to point out something that you can't really see truly about yourself.
Amen to that. Artists who are training need mentors. We need people who've gone ahead in that journey, who can find the best artworks, the best kinds of stories. And one way you can do that is to join our Lorehaven Guild. That is our special castle in the cloud, cloud singular, because it is a Discord server. And you can join by getting your exclusive invitation code by subscribing at lorehaven.com. You then can sign up for our updates. Any new articles, news, Tuesday podcast episodes, or Friday reviews of the best Christian-made, fantastical published novels. You also get your exclusive invitation code to join the Lorehaven Guild. And what we do there is not only talk about topics like this or other articles, any other stories that are going on out there, but also we host monthly book quests. Jumping in like restorationists, except the books hopefully have no need of restoring because they're the best ones we can find, into the best Christian-made fantastical novels. The current one should be wrapping up as this episode comes out, is For the Beast of Taliesin. And then in the first week of October, we're actually getting a book that is out of print. We made some special arrangements with the author for Koenig's Fire, an exceedingly spooky story and rather dark story, but also kind of matching today's topic about what happens when humans sin against one another, against God. and against nature, which is the painting of God and what happens when nature decides to strike back. And oh, by the way, they're also Nazis and plant men. So you'll want to join our book quest for Koenig's Fire. If you can get that book, just join the Lorehaven Guild by subscribing free at lorehaven.com. Carolyn, our world is full of full motion video with 2K, 4K, soon to be 18.5K. We've got so many different platforms and streaming services. And of course, there are the ever present video games. And not to diss video games or TV shows or movies, we like plenty of those around here. But I just wanted to jump into this topic specifically about why, when so many things exist that can dazzle our eyes and that are also qualifying as art in their own way, why should we specifically focus on classic art, a Renaissance art like the old masters, even older than Vincent van Gogh?
So, number one, I think, is because we're made as incarnate people, right? We are not digital people. We're not spirits, right? And so, I love video games and movies and stuff too, but like there's a certain disconnection that happens with those things versus seeing a real painting, especially in real life. It's a very different experience, right? Than even just looking at it on a screen. And it's also important that we're connected with our history and know where we're from, right? What the great artists of the past have done. Like that's actually how artists study, is they have to know everything that came before, and we don't want to lose that. We've had these great artists in our culture. A lot of Western art, especially, is Christian art, and it would be tragic to lose that and lose our knowledge and appreciation of that. So I'm hoping that maybe kids who read this book, and I've had a couple moms tell me already, the kids will be like, "Oh, that's a Van Gogh," on like a coffee mug or something. So hopefully that'll spark some interest in realizing and remembering, hey, we have these really great cultural treasures that are important, and they're available for us to go look at.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one thing that our volunteer review noticed when we saw the pitch for the book, even before it came out. She's a homeschool mom, and she said, "Hey, this would make for a really great unit study, and also it's a fabulous story. So we want to enjoy it as a story first, the adventure, and then make sure that kids are enjoying the journey. And only then might you come along and say, hey, if you liked that book, then we can talk more about Van Gogh. We can talk more about some of those older paintings, and then maybe do a study about it. And then at that point, it's fun." It's something fun and enjoyable to understand, because we're looking at the paintings from outside when our heroes in the fiction have already jumped into them.
Yeah, or to ask your kids, like, what would it be like to be inside this painting? Because a lot of artists actually painted themselves into their paintings. So one of the paintings in the book, for instance, is Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee, and Rembrandt is in the painting. That.
Yeah. I haven't
That's unfortunately one that no one can see anymore because it has been stolen and not recovered.
Oh, no, I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah, so in my story, the bad guys have that one, obviously. It's become kind of a pop culture thing, actually. It appeared in Cobra Kai in the villain's lair.
Oh, wow.
You'll see it different places as kind of a reference for like this is this mysterious stolen art that we can't get back. We don't know how to get back.
Well, I love what you said about we're not just digital beings. We live in a physical world because we're physical beings, and we need to be physically near to art. Especially in the last couple of years, we've all gone through the pandemic, the shutdowns, the Zoom life, and everything that's sprung out of that, like the whole avatar culture, just trying to present yourself as this online persona that so many people live by, and all kinds of identity issues that come with that. But there's something about seeing a painting with your eyes that, like you said, with the Van Gogh painting, there's like a texture to it. It's not, you can't see on a screen. And there was this point a number of years ago, I think it was back in 2008, and I visited the Smithsonian Art Museum in Washington, D.C. I was there at an event where I was a photographer, and so I was just taking photos of everything with this event. The museum tour was just part of the conference I was at. And so I just naturally started taking pictures of all the paintings there, which they let you do. And then I just thought, why am I doing this? And at one point I walked up the stairs, and there was this gigantic painting of something from the 18th century. I want to say it was Napoleon, but it was something like that, like from that era. And I mean, it was like a floor to ceiling painting. It was huge. And I thought, my camera cannot do justice to this painting, and I'm just going to look at it, on a computer screen or a tablet or a phone? Like, what is the point of that? I need to just look at this for a minute with my eyes and remember it. And it's funny, that's the one painting I remember. I don't really remember the other ones that I took pictures of. And again, I don't go back and look at those pictures. Like, what is that impulse where we just visit places now to take pictures of them to never look at again? It's like we don't trust that the experience of seeing things with our eyes is meaningful or can be memorable. But I think you're right. It's something that we absolutely need to experience. And it's counterintuitive because we think, oh, I have all the paintings of the world at my fingertips on this magic glass. Why go anywhere? Why drive or walk anywhere to see them in person? And you go a step beyond that, where they don't just go see them; they go inside of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Zach, you mentioned earlier reading Lewis's That Hideous Strength, and that scene that I just now realized can be retconned as Mark Studdick going into that bizarre mutated art world that's designed to desensitize him to beauty, whereupon he's looking at these paintings on the wall, of one of which I think may have showed someone with their hands clasped at their waist, and then suddenly something's wrong there. That person had 28 different interlocking fingers. Oh, this is AI art. So Lewis, in his great prophetic journey, definitely foresaw the rise of AI art and the various glitches that can result there. But it kind of speaks to, Zach and I did the AI episode a few months ago, so we won't redo the whole thing. But it does speak to this idea that humans are made to admire not just art, but art by human beings. And not that means a technology that allows you to see the art that maybe you'd never, ever see. Like I've never seen the Mona Lisa, but I've seen photos of it. I've seen maybe videos of it, for example. But the more removed you are from something like that, the more you have delivery devices designed to get this thing to you, the less impactful it can be. And then how much more so if you have, quote, artwork, end quote, that has been assembled by a program, artificial intelligence or otherwise, based on having looked at all these different artworks, just fed it through the program in order so it can kind of do a pixel predictive mechanism to kind of guess at what an artwork might look like based on the words that you feed it. I am allergic to that kind of thing now. And I just wonder then, Carolyn, will there be a sequel of the Restorationists where our heroes jump into an AI art and become hopelessly embroiled in that debate? Okay.
They will not go into AI. I will say. Okay. Yeah. So actually one of the things in the world of the Restorationists is you can only enter framed paintings. You go into the painting and then all the paintings of a single artist are interconnected, right? And so they talk about it being connected by the artist's mind. So there would be no mind to connect those AI artworks.
These basically be a Wreck-It Ralph if you jumped into an AI painting. It's not even a painting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fake doorway.
I don't know.
So it didn't work.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Russ Ramsey. He's the author of Rembrandt is in the Wind, but he has a really great thing to say about this is that when he goes and looks at a piece of art, the two questions he asks are, who made this and why? And if the answer to the first question is AI, there is no answer to the second question. Art has to be human. Yeah.
That's very true. I was saying before we started recording it just occurred to me that the Christian should be looking at artwork when we do, and then asking, I think, not only who made this and why, but the third question, if there's one, it should be like, to whom can I give the glory? And the answer is always the same. It's the Sunday school answer, Jesus Christ. Yes, I can thank God for the artist, but I know that the ultimate capital C creator who gave that artist the gifts, as you said, Carolyn, is our creator himself. And so I can then be moved. I've got a direction for that movement. I can not only feel moved, feel inspired, but I can then turn that into action and then feel gratitude and thanksgiving towards the Lord God Almighty for giving the artist the ability to capture God's creation or an idea derived from God's creation, a truth, if not a natural scene, a basket of fruit, people, collecting grain at midnight or whatever the subject is, or even the more, abstract stuff that Van Gogh was known for. It's not necessarily photorealism that he's known for. But if I'm looking at AI, I can't really worship God unless it's, well, God, thank you so much for giving the programmers, bless their hearts, the ability to come up with something wild like this. That is still a form of art too, but it's not good, honest, clean human art like you would get, even with human beings who are putting together a video game. And by the way, one of my favorite video games has a scene where the heroine wakes up and is exposed to these various paintings that someone has collected over the millennia, bypassing a dystopia. And every painting she looks at has clearly been scanned in from a real life painting, and it fits into the story where if you click on their painting, she's looking at it and then, listening to this other character describes why she collected this artwork, what it means to her. And then it figures into the story. So they've actually done something creative with the painting besides just use it as background or something.
That's cool. I like that because that's the kind of thing that makes you want to go research or find if you can see something like that in real life, right? And yeah, I think that's great.
Exactly. I steered Aloy. It was a game called Horizon Forbidden West, and I looked at every single painting. I went through every step of the dialogue tree because I'm that kind of player. And then, yes, I got pretty interested in this. And by the way, they were pretty honest about the religious origins in these paintings too, which is kind of fun for a fairly secular humanist video game. We were talking earlier too, not just about AI, but about Van Gogh, which leads me to a fascinating interview I actually listened to from the Thinking Biblically podcast back in July of 2018. They were interviewing an author of a book called Vincent Van Gogh's Journey of Faith. And although it's not just Van Gogh we're talking about, I think that this fits into the idea of people who maybe learned not to like art because of something terrible that happened to them. And then that leads to the whole stereotype of either the starving artist or the tortured artist. It seems that at least in some elite circles, we can only appreciate art if there's some tragic backstory tied up with it. And one thing that this author did, while not denying that Van Gogh had an extremely tragic life, one thing he did, this author, William Havlicek, blew my mind. He actually challenged the theory that Van Gogh had, as they say on Instagram, to bypass the censors, unalived himself. This author said, no, actually, he got involved in the fight because he was trying to do the right thing, and he was trying to rescue someone, and I forget the details, but it just struck me as a way to maybe kind of subvert that idea that the only reason we can appreciate art is by tying it in with some sort of tragedy or sin or nihilism, however you pronounce it. You can appreciate this art because God has done good things through the life of this artist, even if there is tragedy and starving and all of that stuff tied in with the backstory.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, even if you look at Van Gogh's Starry Night, the backstory of that is he painted it while he was in the asylum. And that painting, I think, is so inspirational. And really, you see what a night sky feels like, right? You see really the glory of God in the sky, right? So I just love that. Yeah. And Van Gogh, he had a lot of good and a lot of bad. I don't think he ever lost his faith. But he did lose his faith in the church. It was kind of sad, but.
Well, I like this device of the paintings connecting together because they're all connected to the mind of the artist and how that connects you just in the real world, that connects us to the artist and kind of what they were going through. And that really is the point of looking at art. It's making that connection to another human. When my wife Naomi was a engineering student in mechanical engineering, she would just kind of get sick of class and lab work and stuff. And so she would just go for a walk through the art gallery on her college campus. And that was kind of her place to find peace and sanity and just get a break from everything. But she also loves history. And so any painting that she's really become interested in, she's learned the story behind it. And it's always fun whenever we see a painting in a movie and she'll either, if she's not familiar with it, she'll go look it up. If she is familiar with it, she'll tell me the story about it. And it's just neat to see these connections and how we still make connections to them. One example is a movie we both love, is a Tom Cruise movie. And yes, we're unapologetically Tom Cruise fans. We love almost every movie Tom Cruise is in, almost. But the one that we particularly love is Oblivion from 2013. And there's this painting of this young woman laying in a field, kind of crawling, looking towards this house on the horizon. It's called Christina's World.
Christina's World.
Yeah. And it's just, it's so emotional looking at it. And the painting in the movie is in this kind of human preserve where they're hiding from the aliens. And then they they try to keep it after, there's death and destruction. It's like very important to them to keep this painting. And one of the characters says, it reminds me of home. It's like this sense of longing. And so it's like, and then you can read about the story about it. It's about a woman that she had muscular dystrophy or a muscular disorder, but she didn't want to use her wheelchair. So she liked to crawl places. And so even that is kind of interesting. Like there's a story behind that. And then now there's all these places, and there's other movies and books that the painting is shown up in. And so once you learn that story, this is just one painting, right? But it's like once you learn that, then you see, okay, so this is why the filmmakers chose that for that scene. And this is how it relates to that story. And so you start to kind of build all these little interlocking islands of meaning, but all because that original image had a meaning to it. Back to the whole AI thing, that there is no meaning to it because there's no point to it. I like playing with the AI stuff. Full disclosure, I think it's fun, but it's fun and kind of like boys like to play with slime and that kind of thing. It's just like fun because
that's a great comparison.
There isn't that connection to like, oh, this is really. I mean, every now and then there is like an AI image that everyone notices that goes viral. Like there's one recently that went viral of.
Yeah, I know which one that is.
Over
Yes.
the tables.
Yeah, that is a violation of God and nature. That's a violation of nature, and nature's God right there.
Right.
And also a second commandment violation, because now you're looking at a graven image, graven by AI too, which is worse.
And if to your listener, if you don't know this image, you can Google it. But the AI interpreted the scene from John 2 is not Jesus using his hands to lift up the table of the money changers and flipping them over, but Jesus himself flipping over the table in a somersault.
Yeah, it's a rather epic anime style flip too. I think it's before he unleashes his Super Saiyan attack. So whether it's AI art or real art, human art, video games, classic paintings, whatever, parents need discernment in order to help their kids enter these worlds and sort out the good, the beautiful, and the true versus the idols. And one resource that helps you do that is our third sponsor, the Pop Culture Parent, a nonfiction resource that's co-authored by myself as well as Ted Turneau and Dr. Jared Moore. It's available from New Growth Press, and it is a handy guide that takes you through the purpose of popular culture. Why do we have art? Why do we have fantastical stories, any kinds of stories, games, songs, any of that? What is it even for? Is it just to morally edify the kids or distract them while you get some work done? Or does it have a deeper meaning? And from there, we go through case studies that are custom tailored to each age group. Younger kids, older kids, and teenagers, with specific examples helping you go through 5 questions to explain how you engage these stories. Parents can use these questions to not just analyze the story, but start thinking, I think, more Christianly about what these stories are for, and then help their kids to do the same. That is in the Pop Culture Parent, the nonfiction book from New Growth Press, and we'll have that link along with all the other sponsored links in our show notes for episode 181. Carolyn, Chapter 3, what is next then for you and the restorationists? You got this shiny logo up there at the top. That to me says series. Is this a book 1? And if so, can you drop a whole bunch of spoilers and exclusives here just to favor your friendly folks at Fantastical Truth?
It is a book 1, and I will tell you what I can. So it's going to be a 3-book series. Book 2, I just finished editing a couple weeks ago, and that takes place when Vincent comes back over the summer to train as a restorationist at the farm with Leo and George's parents. But it is told from George's perspective this time. She thinks that she's wanted someone else to be a friend and be a fellow restorationist with her all this time, but then the reality is that it's actually difficult for her to share the spotlight, and she's been an only child and kind of had all the attention for so long. And there's some comparisonitis going on between her gift and Vincent's. And so the book is really about no gift being small and the value of small things. And that is going to be coming, Lord willing, sometime next fall. I don't have a date yet. And then book 3 will be hopefully the following fall.
Okay, so titles TBD, but release windows are likely, but not absolutely set in stone for fall of 2024 and then maybe fall of 2025.
Yep.
Well, that is fantastic. And these books also are illustrated too. I don't want to leave without crediting your illustrator. Is this because it's a chapter book for middle grade readers, is it like an illustration for every chapter? Or how exactly does that work? And any props to your illustrator you want to give?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Vivian Toe is the illustrator, and she is absolutely amazing. The cover is just phenomenal. I think you can't help but want to pick up the book when you see it. But yeah, it's not one illustration per chapter. There's maybe like, oh gosh, I didn't count them, but maybe like 6 like bigger like full page illustrations, and then there's like small little details kind of interspersed throughout. And then another cool thing about the book, this was my editor's vision, and she's just amazing. Let me just shout out to her, Bunmi Ashola. But she decided that when the kids go into the corridors between the paintings, which is a very dark place, that the actual color of the page would change. And then there's a point at which the pages go from white to gray to actually black. And I'm not going to spoil why that is, but it just really gives the book a very immersive feeling.
See, that's something that we miss because at Lorehaven, we have to stick to the digital copies in order to get it to the best possible reviewer. So once again, physical beats digital. There's just some stuff that the digital delivery device cannot beat. That is marvelous. So I'm looking forward then to get a physical copy of the first book of the Restorationists, Beneath the Swirling Sky. Obviously, a reference there to the classic Van Gogh work. Carolyn, really appreciate you stopping by. I look forward to tracking with this series and seeing where Vincent and his friends will jump into next. And I guess with that, then we'll need to wheel that painting back in here and then you can jump on out of here. But first, of course, how do folks keep track of your life and work? Where can folks go to learn more about your books?
Okay, folks can find me at therestorationist.com. Since Carolyn Leiloglou is a bit hard to spell, there's also carolynleiloglou.com or anywhere on social as House Full of Bookworms.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Well, Stephen, as a child of the 80s, the painting I always think about falling into is the one from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where the character Cameron stares at towards the end of the movie. They go to the Art Institute of Chicago. I actually got to visit there about 4 or 5 years ago. And the painting is a pointillist style painting. It's huge. It's called A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's by George Seurat. And it's a really interesting painting as a pointillist because the closer you get to it, the more you look at it, it doesn't make any sense. It's just all these little dots. But then when you step back, you see this really amazing, scene. And it's just incredible to think about how did someone make that with all those little dots? And I found this interview with the filmmaker of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, John Hughes. And he said, quote, "I always thought this painting was sort of like making a movie, the pointillist style. You don't have any idea what you've made until you step back from it. The more Cameron looks at it, there's nothing there. He fears that the more you look at him, the less you see." End quote. So, very profound moment in the film. It was amazing to actually go see that painting and think about what if I could go to the scene? Like it just seems like a fun type scene. Of course, everyone's wearing these, the old fashioned clothes and everything. And so would you want to have to dress up to that just to go to the park? I don't know. I'd rather wear more casual clothes, but it's a mesmerizing painting. So it's if you get a chance to go see it, you definitely got to go see it. Stephen, something I really liked what Carolyn said is that it's important to be connected with history. And so that's why we study art. And so to you, our listener, I would love to know, what are some of your favorite paintings and why do they matter to you? I think that's the key thing that we got at from our discussion. It's not just, you like a painting because it's pretty, but it means something. And maybe there's a story behind why it means something to you or why it meant something to the artist. So send us a note to podcast@lorehaven.com, or you can comment on this episode on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or the episode page on Lorehaven. And please subscribe free to lorehaven.com. You can get updates on new articles, book reviews, and join our Lorehaven Guild, our exclusive Discord server.
That's where we get a lot of our feedback for episodes like this one. In our comm station, we had a few notifications roll in after I did a solo show for episode 179. That's the one about fake real men versus good men, inspired by the book, The Toxic War on Masculinity by Nancy Pearcey. We didn't have her as a guest, but she actually did see that episode, and she herself commented when I posted it on my own social media. She said, "This post proves that artistic people understand books better than most people." I would agree. with the caveat that everyone has the capacity to be creative. It's just that we forget, or as Carolyn said, some people have a bad experience with art, just as a lot of people have had bad experiences with men or bad experiences with women for that matter, and it suddenly colors your experience of everything, and it's not good. We are made to be restorationists because Christ has restored us if we do have faith in him. So great way is to debunk the fake real men that we've met or seen in stories and comics and such, and instead understand that we're made, men anyway, are made to be good men.
Yeah, well, Stephen, just to bounce off of that, I've interacted a little bit with Nancy on Twitter, and I definitely understand why she's saying this, which is because a lot of people have maliciously misquoted her and misunderstood her to make some other kind of political point, and then
There's
they
a lot of
actually
emotions tied up with this issue. Absolutely,
and then they actually go and read what she's written. They're like, "Oh, okay, it's not making whatever point I thought it was in my head." And you look at some of these, well, frankly, just political activists that are doing this, and there's really no artistic sense to anything they're doing. It's just they're just churning out content. In some cases, just more propaganda kind of stuff. And so I think she's probably kind of had her fill of that. And so it must have been refreshing for her to see your take on this and that solo episode you did, because we do value the role of art, and I think just by having to study things carefully, it does give you a little bit more of that listening ear, which unfortunately a lot of critics seem to lack when they've encountered her material.
Well, it also gave me a great opportunity to talk about a peace-loving samurai, and of course, that amazing broke the anime Western live-action adaptation curse series One Piece on Netflix, which a lot of now folks in the guild that we've talked about have been discovering that. It started off as a manga, and now it's also an anime, and now it's also a live-action. That wasn't terrible. In fact, it was really great. And we had a hero of the Lorehaven Guild calling himself Joe a Hasty Int. He was also finding good men in One Piece, both the anime and the live action. And he said, Usopp, as of his introductory arc in season 1, is a good young man. He lays his life down to protect his village, turns down an opportunity to inflate his ego, and acts as a father to his crew of young pirates. Another One Piece real man, Zeph, owner of the floating restaurant with the fighting cooks. That dude is such a Giga Chad dad to Sanji, the way he sacrificed for him and mentored him. That's very true. The story about Zeph, I've noticed, who is like a former pirate who is now a 5-star chef on the Barati restaurant. And he also has the world's most ridiculous Giga Chad blonde mustache. So he's basically a walking, talking meme from a manga originally drawn in the late 90s. Zeph has a backstory of sacrifice and multiple different sacrifices and just a way to die to self that is illustrated actually in different ways in the original anime as well as the live action. And it's a little bit gross if you think about it in either way. So 2 very different ways that the Zeph sacrifices himself. I don't know if I'd call him a real man. I think he was a real man, a pirate, who does turn into a good man, which is really the trajectory of that episode and the trajectory of Nancy Piercy's book.
Also in the guild, we had a comment from Mahina who said, Theo from the Morgan L. Bussey's Secret in the Mist is willing to put his life and risk his reputation, fortune, and safety to save those less fortunate than him by carrying in the scientific work that got his parents killed. Also taking care of and loving Cass in a respectful way. End quote. Well, that's really cool. That's we interviewed Morgan a few episodes back about the kind of the zombie world that exists, along with airships, which is a fun combination. So definitely go check out that interview and check out Morgan's book.
Speaking of dangerous things that can happen in the air, this spooky season, a storm is coming, and it will change your dreary Kansas life from its 1938 sepia tones into a magical world with a yellow brick road, plus bubbles and little people and urban studio legends, and just in time for Halloween, a famously wicked Western witch. From movies to musicals to the original books by L. Frank Baum, we will explore the Wizard of Oz. What are the wonderful things he does? And why has this older fantasy novel captured the imaginations of so many people, including Zach's own sister, Nicole? By the way, don't be a distortionist. Don't go off ruining art for ugly means. Art was made to be beautiful. It was made to be beheld and it was made to be human. God wants people making wonderful works of art so that we can appreciate not just the gifts that He has given the artist, but so that we can be moved to worship Him. Let us therefore act as restorationists as we continue to seek and find His fantastical truth.